Now, Democrat turned Republican Artur Davis on the dangers of using race to make your case. Congressman, good to have you back. You
Bill, good to talk to you as always, and good to talk to your audience.
Now, you were wooed to become a Republican because you had it with sort of the doublespeak of Democrats. Now hearing about the latest charges that those who oppose the president's agenda are secretly racist. What do you make of that?
You know, the first thing I thought about, Neil, when I heard Harry Reid's comments, remember that old commercial they used to have on the air when we were kids, where the older brothers would take the cereal they didn't want and they'd give it to the younger brother, Mikey, and they'd say, give it to Mikey, he'll eat anything. Well, Harry Reid is the give it to Harry, he'll say anything guy of American politics. You know, a little bit of recent history. Let's not forget that last year, Harry Reid was running around the country spreading unsubstantiated rumors about Mitt Romney's taxes, refusing to put forward any evidence for it. Let's not forget that in 2008, Harry Reid was making unsubstantiated smears about John McCain's character. This is what this guy does. And, of course, it's especially outrageous when he does it in the context of what continues to be a serious subject in America when it's treated seriously, race. But this is who Harry Reid is. This is the guy who will say anything and then run from it. And, of course, let's also not forget that 7 years ago, this is the guy who said that Barack Obama was notable because he was the rare African-American politician who didn't speak in Harry Reid's words, quote-unquote, Negro dialect.
I had forgotten about that, Congressman. You know, but I guess by couching it in, I hope they're not doing this because he's African-American, he kind of gives himself an out but raises doubts in the public's mind. Do you think the public buys that?
Oh, I think that, you know, let's put this in perspective. 50% of the country right now disapproves of the job Barack Obama's doing. If you go to that 50% versus about 45 who approve, now, if you go to that 50% of Americans who represent every strand of the spectrum, from conservative Democrats who are looking at Obamacare and realizing it's not doing anything it promised to do and is doing many things it promised it wouldn't do, to younger Americans who are having to try to find a job in this very stagnant economy, to all kinds of Americans who don't see this administration keeping its promises in issue after issue. If you ask that 50% of Americans, gee, do you think you're a racist for not approving of the job the president's doing? Obviously, they don't buy that. So Harry Reid doesn't say these things to persuade people. He says these things to put Republicans on the defensive, and he says these things to make Republicans have to backpedal and have to get defensive about these things. He's not trying to persuade a single human being, but he's right.
But shouldn't he be working harder, Congressman, on persuading the rank and file that were big supporters of this health care law in the beginning, who now are not? Unions most notably come to mind, and a lot of small business groups that were early on backers because they were told that they would be exempted from some of the more onerous provisions of this health care law. Now they're in limbo because big corporations get a delay in implementing it. Small guys, not so much. So doesn't he have a problem with the base of the Democratic Party than anything with that other party?
Neil, you could do a whole program for 5 days, every day of the week, on the flaws in Obamacare, and you'd still have your audience needing to know more. We could go issue by issue. We could look at the fact that businesses all around this country are making decisions right now to walk away from their private health insurance plans. They're breaking their promise to their employees because Obamacare is making it financially feasible for them to do that and actually encouraging them to do that. You can talk about many middle-class families in this country who have good health insurance plans who are now being told that because of the Cadillac tax, they've got to pay more in terms of premiums. You can talk about all manner of people who are seeing their premiums go up. We saw the Ohio survey a few weeks ago and the rise in premiums in Ohio. And we can also talk about the low-income Americans who aren't going to be covered by the subsidies for middle-class people. Their income's not high enough, and because the Obama administration structured its Medicaid expansion in a way where states will have to pick up the bill beginning in 4 years, and if you're a serious governor, you've got to think about your budget 4 years from now, not just today. Well, because of the way that expansion was designed, you can talk about the 6 million middle-income Americans who are in jeopardy, or lower-income Americans who are in jeopardy of falling through the cracks of Obamacare. You can go issue by issue or aspect by aspect of Obamacare, and you can find ways it's not working. And guess what? The administration knows it's not working because they keep taking particular pieces of it and saying, well, we're going to postpone this, we're going to delay this. And what do we find out this morning? We find out that one of the signature items in Obamacare, which is that health insurance companies supposedly have to cap your expenses or have to cap what you have to pay, those provisions are being quietly pushed aside for another year to give insurance companies a chance to adjust. So this isn't working, and that's why the American people aren't happy about what they see in the second term. And if they could somehow have a do-over from November 6th, we know what would happen.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll tell you, Congressman, I know you personally have dealt with sort of this racism issue. You took a lot of heat, but you stood your ground. Congressman, a real pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Neil.
Well, you might